What would you do if the only creature who ever truly loved someone broken was left bleeding in the rain and no one came? In a quiet corner of the city, where the buildings grew older and the paint peeled a little more with every passing year, there lived an old man nobody really knew the name of. The children called him Grandfather. The shopkeepers called him the sick old man on Third Lane, and the stray dog that slept curled against his door every single night called him nothing at all, because the dog didn't need a name to know exactly who he belonged to. The old man was sick, not the kind of sick that passes with rest and a warm bowl of soup, but the kind that settles deep into the bones and never quite leaves. His hands trembled when he lifted a cup. His breath came in short, rattling pulls, like wind struggling through a cracked door. He had once been strong. You could still see it in the shape of his shoulders, in the calluses that never fully softened from his palms. But strength, like everything else, fades when there is no one left to hold it up. He lived alone in a single room at the back of an abandoned print shop, with a leaking roof and a floor that creaked like it was tired of carrying even his small weight. And beside him, through all of it, was the dog. Nobody knew where the dog had come from. Some said it had wandered into the old man's doorway one rainy season and simply never left. Others said the old man had once fed a starving mutt a piece of bread he could not spare, and the dog had spent every day since trying to repay a debt it didn't understand it never owed. Whatever the truth was, the two of them had become, in the eyes of the neighborhood, a single creature with two hearts and one shared hunger. Because the old man could no longer walk far, and the coins in his tin cup were rarely enough for two mouths, the dog had learned to do something dangerous. Every evening, when the smell of roasting meat and simmering broth drifted out from the restaurant 3 streets away, the dog would slip through the alley, dart between the legs of customers, and steal whatever scrap it could snatch from the kitchen door before anyone noticed. Almost every time someone noticed, the restaurant belonged to a sharp-tempered man named Master Who, a man who had built his business from nothing and guarded every last grain of rice like it was gold. The moment he caught sight of the dog's thin shadow, he would drop whatever he was holding and chase the animal down the street, cursing loud enough to send pigeons scattering from the rooftops. And almost every time a young man, tall, quiet, with calm, watchful eyes, would step out from the crowd, take food from his own plate or buy something fresh, and press it gently into the dog's mouth before Master Who could catch it. Then he would disappear again, saying nothing, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world to interrupt a grown man's fury over a hungry animal. Nobody knew his name. They only knew that wherever the dog ran, sooner or later, the fine young man appeared, like some quiet law of nature that refused to let the dog go hungry. This had happened so many times that Master Who had stopped merely being angry. Somewhere along the way, his frustration had curdled into something darker, a wounded, festering pride, the humiliation of being outwitted, night after night, by a stray animal and a stranger who never even gave him the courtesy of a name. Men have carried smaller wounds than that into terrible places. Master Who was no exception. The rain came down harder than anyone could remember, turning the narrow streets into rivers of mud and broken lantern light. Most sensible people had gone indoors. But hunger does not wait for good weather. The dog slipped once again through the restaurant's back door and snatched a bundle of meat. And once again, Master Who came roaring out after it, drenched to the bone, a boning knife still gripped in his fist from the cutting board he'd stormed away from. This time, the fine young man was already standing nearby, sheltering from the rain. He saw the dog dart past, saw Master Hu lunge for it, and, without thinking, bought an extra portion from a nearby stall, more than usual, wrapping it carefully against the storm, the way he always did. But this time was different. As the dog seized the food from his outstretched hand and turned to run, Master Hu, soaked, humiliated, past the point of reason, closed the last few steps between them and swung the blade still gripped in his fist. It was, perhaps, meant only as a threat, a final furious gesture to reclaim some scrap of dignity after months of being mocked by an animal and a stranger. But the rain made the ground slick, and the dog was fast, and the blade found something it was never meant to find. The dog let out a single, sharp cry, swallowed almost instantly by the roar of the storm, and staggered forward, then bolted into the dark, food still clenched desperately in its jaws, a thin line of red already beginning to spread beneath its soaked fur. Master Hu stood frozen in the rain, staring at his own hand as though it belonged to someone else. The young man had seen it happen. For one terrible second, he stood paralyzed, torn between fury and disbelief. Then, instinct took over. He said nothing to Master Hu. There was no time, and perhaps no words yet existed for what he felt, and ran after the dog into the storm, calling out softly, urgently, into the dark. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with the answer for a second. Have you ever watched something small and innocent suffer for a mistake it never made, simply because someone else couldn't control their own anger? If this story has already gripped your chest the way I think it has, do me one favor right now. Hit that like button and drop a button in the comments if you're still with me. Because what happens in the next few minutes is going to stay with you long after this video ends. Don't look away yet. Keep watching. The dog did not run for the alley, or for shelter, or for anywhere safe. Wounded, bleeding, its strength draining with every splashing step, it ran the only direction its whole battered life had ever truly pointed: home, toward the crumbling back door of an abandoned print shop, toward the old man waiting inside. The young man followed close behind, his own coat soaked through, his heart hammering with a fear he could not yet name. Through flooded alleys, past shuttered doors, beneath dripping eaves, he chased the faint, staggering shape ahead of him until it finally collapsed against a rotted wooden door, scratching weakly at the gap where the wood had given way. He pushed the door open. Inside, lit by a single guttering candle, an old man lay on a thin mat on the floor, wrapped in a blanket gone gray with age. He turned his head at the sound, his clouded eyes struggling to focus. First on the dog, dragging itself the last few feet toward him, with the food still somehow clutched in its jaws, and then on the tall, soaked stranger, standing frozen in the doorway. The young man's gaze fell, almost involuntarily, on a small wooden box resting on a shelf beside the old man. Battered, faded, a single brass emblem still clinging to its lid. His hand rose slowly to an identical emblem pinned beneath his own collar, one he had worn every day since the war ended, in memory of a father he'd been told did not survive it. "That box," he whispered, his voice breaking, "belonged to my father." The old man's lips trembled. "They told you I died." "Father?" There was no time left for the reunion either of them might have imagined in all the years of silent hoping. The dog, having finally reached the old man's side, laid the food gently at his feet. Its final delivery, its final promise kept, and then its legs gave out beneath it. It collapsed softly against the old man's lap, its breathing slowing, its eyes searching, one last time, for the two faces it had spent its whole life quietly trying to bring back together. The young man dropped to his knees, pressing his hands against the wound, shouting for water, for cloth, for anything. But even as he worked, some quiet, breaking part of him already understood there was nothing left to save. The old man, weak as he was, reached down with a trembling hand and stroked the dog's soaked fur, tears sliding freely down a face that had almost forgotten how to cry from anything but grief. "You brought him home," the old man whispered to the dog, his voice cracking. "You finally brought him home." The dog's tail moved once, faintly, against the floor. Its eyes found the old man's face, then the young man's, holding there for one long, impossible moment. And then, gently, without a sound, it was gone. The room fell silent except for the rain still drumming against the roof, and the sound of two men, a father who had waited 20 years to be found, and a son who had spent that same 20 years not knowing there was anyone left to look for, weeping together over the small, still body that had finally, at the cost of everything it had, brought them back to each other. Word spread through the neighborhood in the days that followed, not through any announcement, but the way truth in small places always spreads, quietly, from doorway to doorway. The fine young man, it turned out, was no ordinary passerby, but a decorated soldier who had built a life of discipline and quiet distance because he had never been permitted to properly grieve a father he believed had died in the war. And now, impossibly, unbearably, there was a father to hold and a small, loyal grave to dig beneath the one window in that room that let in any real light. Master Hu did not sleep for many nights after that storm. When the story finally reached him in full, the box, the emblem, the father he had never known was hiding behind his own restaurant, the 20 years of searching that had ended the very night his temper got the better of him. He closed his shop for 3 days and told no one why. When he finally reopened, he placed a small bowl of food by his back door every single evening for any hungry, wandering creature that passed, and he never once raised his hand or his voice at a stray again for as long as he lived. It did not undo what the rain had witnessed. Some things cannot be undone, but it was, perhaps, the only apology a man like him knew how to make to a debt he could never truly repay. The old man recovered slowly in his son's care, in a room with a real bed and a window that let in real light. But those who visited said that even in his happiest moments, his eyes would sometimes drift toward the small patch of earth beneath that window, and something in his face would grow quiet and far away, as if he were thanking once more the one who had made the reunion possible and never got to stay for it. Some stories end happily. This one didn't, not completely, because sometimes the ones who love us the most, silently, are the ones who pay the highest price to bring us home and never get to see what their love finally built. If this story moved you, if it made your chest ache the way it made mine, don't scroll past it in silence. Comment below and tell me, do you think the dog knew, somehow, what it was carrying home that night? Would you have forgiven Master Hu? Or do you think some mistakes are too heavy to ever be forgiven? Hit like. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that quiet loyalty is often the loudest kind of love. And subscribe, because we'll be back soon with another story that will break your heart just enough to remind you it's still working. Until next time, hold the loyal ones a little closer tonight. You never know which walk home will be their last.